This is my second video update for the day, and I want to talk a little bit about the travel ban on Russian citizens to Europe. I want to talk a little bit about the Druzhya pipeline and what's going on there, and do a clown world as well, and talk about a little bit more about the UK, the energy crisis that's going to hit the UK, and comments by Boris Johnson. That'll be the clown world. Boris Johnson comment. Allegedly, this is something that he said. But let's talk about the travel ban. So Zelensky, the other day in an interview with the Washington Post, was talking up a general collective punishment travel ban on Russians for Europe to enter the European Union. And he was pleading with EU kleptocrats to implement a Russian-wide travel ban. And the minute Zelensky did that interview with the Washington Post, like 1 or 2 minutes after that, you pretty much had Estonia and Finland making statements saying, yeah, let's put a blanket travel ban on all Russian citizens so they can't travel anywhere in the European Union. Now, the EU has downplayed that. The EU's kind of walked away from that suggestion, and they're saying this is not really feasible or a good idea. It's already very difficult to travel. If you're a Russian, to travel to the European Union, the logistics of it, and vice versa. You know, I want to make my way to Moscow as well, because I like Moscow. It's a great place to be in the summer. Russia in general is a nice place. It's not as hot as Athens, and that's nice. But it's difficult, you know, the flights, the connections are hard because you can't fly through Russia. I mean, you can't fly direct to Russia. You have to fly through Turkey, Istanbul, Constantinople, Yerevan. Where else? Through Belgrade, but you know, the connections are kind of out of whack. And the layovers are quite extensive as well. It's really windy today. One sec. I didn't put my windshield on to do this video, so give it a sec. Greece for August is actually quite full. I remember when it was August around this time, Athens used to be so empty, like no one around. And now it's like a lot of people here for August, which to me shows that people can't take holidays. They just don't have the ability to get out in August. Anyway, as I'm stuck in this median, so yeah, just the logistics of going to Russia, whether you're flying to Russia or Russia flying to Europe, it's tough. The prices are high, getting there is hard, finding connections is hard, all of it is kind of tough. But now they want to institute just, you know, a no Schengen visa kind of policy. Russians will not be able to get Schengen visas, and that was coming out of Finland and Estonia. And the Kremlin commented about that, and they said pretty much that these people in Finland and Estonia are crazies. And they're kind of right, because why do this? I mean, I understand what you think you're accomplishing. As Zelensky said, he thinks in his mind, in his puny, itsy-bitsy brain, Zelensky and these EU officials that are calling for a ban on Russians traveling to the EU, they think that the Russians are going to somehow get really upset because they just can't travel to Europe anymore, to the European Union, and they're gonna gather in the streets of Moscow, and they're gonna have this massive protest, and they're gonna storm the Kremlin and overthrow Putin. This is what goes through their heads. You know, these EU officials, when you meet them, these are like the types of fantasies that they have in their brains, and that's what they think they're going to do. They think that people are so crazy to get into the European Union that they're willing to denounce their own country, their own being, their own history and culture. That's how arrogant they are. But it's not going to work. These are silly thoughts. All it's going to do is it's going to make the Russian people not care about the EU even more. It's going to make them say, you know what? They hate us, so why should we travel there anyway? And it's just going to create a much larger divide between the two areas, Russia and the European Union. But luckily for now, many countries, many member states in the EU, I imagine Greece, Cyprus, Italy, a few other countries, obviously Hungary, of course Hungary. I imagine there's some member states that are saying, you know what, we need Russia, we need the Russian tourists, we need to keep the door open to Russia, so this is a bad idea. But Finland actually relies on a lot of Russian tourists and a lot of Russian movement going into Finland, but it looks like they've closed that door. And the effects will be felt, maybe not immediately, but give it some time. The effects will be felt. And that's the story with the travel ban. Interestingly enough, I've talked about on the Duran how Cyprus has worked out a type of connection to get to Moscow. It's kind of a workaround kind of thing where you go from Cyprus to Yerevan, and then you jump on Aeroflot, and from Aeroflot, grab a seat here, and then from Aeroflot, from Yerevan, you go Aeroflot to Moscow. So it's kind of a workaround. What used to be a 3.5 hour flight has turned into like an 8 to 9 hour flight, but you know, it is what it is. We now have news that Wizz Air, the Hungarian airline Wizz Air, is now going to be opening up flights from UAE to Moscow. So that's going to be starting in October. Wizz Air is going to be flying direct from UAE to Moscow. So that's going to be another workaround. You know, that's why they're announcing it. If you can get to the UAE, then you can get a direct flight to Moscow using Wizz Air. So that line's going to open up as well in October. And that just leads me to believe that this whole travel ban, this whole, you know, cutting off the airspace for Europe and Russia between the two areas is starting to crumble. And slowly, we're seeing airlines starting to figure out ways to get around this. And eventually, as more and more countries do what, say, Cyprus is doing and what Hungary is doing, you're going to see the entire ban on traveling kind of collapse. Remember, it was the European Union that did this first. It wasn't Russia that closed its airspace to the EU. It was the EU that did two things the minute the conflict broke out. The first thing they did was they banned all media. Remember that? They shut down RT, they shut down all Russian media, just a blanket shutdown across the EU. That was one of the first things they did. And then the second thing that they did was they closed off the airspace, and they forced every member nation to close off its airspace to Russian commercial airliners. So it was the EU that, in their arrogance and stupidity, in Vander Crazy's arrogance and stupidity, she actually thought it would be a good idea to close off the airspace for the European Union to commercial Russian airliners. Of course, the Russians retaliated, and they did pretty much the same countermeasure, the reciprocal for Russia. So no EU commercial jets flying over Russian airspace, and now we have the situation that we have. So that is the story with the airlines. Let's talk about the Druzhya pipeline, which was shut down by Ukraine, delivering oil, most notably to Hungary, but I also believe to the Czech Republic, and if I'm not mistaken, to Slovakia as well, if I am not mistaken. And the Ukraine shut down that pipeline. The reason they shut it down is because Transneft, which is the Russian company that delivers the oil, that is responsible for the transporting of oil via the Druzia to these EU countries, well, their payment to Ukraine was not accepted by the Ukrainian officials. And the Ukrainian officials wouldn't accept it because they were saying that given the EU 7th sanctions package, of which Ukraine for some reason feels that it has to abide by, even though Ukraine is not an EU member state anyway, Ukraine felt that they had to abide by the EU sanctions package, and they could not accept payment from Transneft to Ukraine for the passage, for the transit of this oil over Ukraine territory. Isn't that incredible that Russia and Ukraine are fighting a war? You have this conflict in Ukraine, but yet the Russians continue to deliver gas and oil through Ukraine. They continue to use this Ukraine transit to get oil and gas to Europe. And not only that, Russia still pays Ukraine for transit fees. Isn't that incredible? But it was Ukraine that rejected the Russian payment. And Transneft said, well, we can't, deliver oil via transit through Ukraine because Ukraine has returned the payment, and that's it. We have to stop the oil transit. And that's where we were yesterday. No more oil, specifically going to Hungary. And Hungary needs that transit point for the oil because they don't have any other way of getting it. And so we had to have a Hungarian oil and energy company, MOL, had to step in and say, you know what? We'll pay for the transit. We'll accept the payment from Russia, and then we'll pay for the transit for this Russian oil through Ukraine. So Ukraine is going to get paid by Hungary now in order to transit that oil over Ukraine territory, and so it can reach Hungary. I wonder how long it's going to be before Zelensky and his regime get so upset with Ukraine, with Hungary, at its neutral position, at its neutral stance with Russia, that they decide to turn down the Hungarian payment for all transit over Ukraine. So I thought that was a really interesting story. And by the way, it is Slovakia, Hungary, and Czech Republic that are serviced via the Druzia pipeline, transiting the oil over Ukraine. Ukraine is shutting off oil to the European Union. They're the ones that want the EU to suffer. And then they say, oh, we have to abide by the 7th sanctions package of the EU. That's why we can't accept payment from Transneft, from a Russian company. Give me a break. Ukraine is not part of the European Union. They don't have to abide by any sanctions. It's money that actually comes into the Ukraine economy, which makes this even doubly odd. I mean, you're refusing payments, which actually could help your economy, but they don't care about helping their economy because why should they care? The U.S. is flipping the bill for everything right now in Ukraine. And that's not an exaggeration. The U.S. is paying for everything in Ukraine right now. The soldiers, the military, the government officials, that's being paid by the citizens of the United States of America. Congratulations. Crazy. This is a clown world right here. But they turned all that down. And they want to make Hungary. I think they want to make Hungary suffer. That's why they did this. So the latest reports are that this solution via Hungary, via the company MOL, looks like it's going to be accepted for now by Ukraine. But I wouldn't be surprised if Zelensky gets so upset with Orban that he decides to turn down the Hungarian payment of this oil. And with that being said, let's get to the UK and we'll do our clown world. So we have a report from Saxo Bank, which is saying that that the UK is becoming an emerging market. And we have various analysts at Saxo Bank who are saying that what Brexit has not done by itself, Brexit coupled with that thing that caused lockdowns, that word that I cannot say on YouTube, and high inflation, have succeeded in doing. The UK economy is crushed. You see this analyst who's working at Saxo Bank, doesn't want to say sanctions. He refuses to say sanctions against Russia. So he just leaves it at Brexit, high inflation, and that thing that caused lockdowns. He doesn't want to say the dumb, idiotic sanctions that clown Boris placed on Russia. This analyst just basically goes through how the UK is really just now a third world country, or is becoming a third world country. He says that the only thing that is saving the UK at this moment is its currency, and pretty much the city of London. The only thing prohibiting the UK from being characterized as an emerging market country is a currency crisis, with the British pound sterling holding firm in spite of all the macroeconomic headwinds. So that's pretty much the only thing that doesn't drop the UK into emerging market status. The German economy is forecast to shrink. That's also a topic right now. A lot of people are talking about an impending recession in Germany. I spoke with Alexander just now, and Alexander is like pretty much saying, he said that Germany is pretty much in a recession. It's kind of silly to not admit as much. UK braces for blackouts. That's according to Bloomberg. UK plans for blackouts in January in emergency energy plan. Reasonable worst case scenario envisages 4-day power shortfall, and industry households could face planned power outages. This is all happening in two economies in Europe that were considered the gold standard. Eh? Para bolli. Yeah, so, you know, big time shift in how these economies were once thought to be and what they're now becoming. But I'll leave it there with these headlines. I'm sure everyone could dig up more and more headlines of the economic crash and crisis that is hitting the UK and Germany. And we're just at the beginning. That's the worst part about this. We haven't even started yet. We're still in the first... We're ending the first week of August, and we haven't really entered winter yet. So things are just going to continue to get worse and worse, especially as these countries continue to sacrifice themselves on the hill called Zelensky. But let's do a clown world. There's going to be a super short clown world, and it basically has to do with Boris Johnson. And according to somebody who was giving a radio interview, let me pull up the name. This person who was speaking with Boris Johnson said that Boris Johnson described his term as foreign minister of the United Kingdom as wearing a steel condom. As wearing a steel condom. Can someone explain what you think that phrase means? Boris Johnson said it felt like he was imprisoned in a steel condom. I'm sorry, I said wearing a steel condom. It felt as if he was imprisoned in a steel condom when he held the job of foreign minister from 2016 to 2018. And this is according to former Scottish Tory leader and no friend of Johnson's, Baroness Davidson. Okay? She revealed this in what is being termed a saucy interview with LBC. Revealed the saucy turn of phrase, in an LBC interview. It felt like he was imprisoned in a steel condom. He once described being foreign secretary to me as like being enclosed in a steel condom, she told LBC's Lane, I can't see because of the sunlight. Let me move here to the shade. Ian Dale. I found it odd because I hadn't asked him. I think he meant the amount of attention he had from civil servants to make sure he didn't say anything. Imprisoned in a steel condom is what he said. I've never heard that as a phrase, Davidson added. It would certainly affect performance, but this is not my area of expertise, as I think you've already covered. Davidson came out as a lesbian in 2015. Dale responded by saying he was quite surprised that Boris Johnson knows what a condom is, in an apparent reference to the PM having fathered 7 children, including 2 with his current wife. I didn't know Boris Johnson had 7 children. Wow. Okay, a steel condom. Very interesting phrase from Boris Johnson. I'm still trying to work that out as to what that phrase implies. I mean, I've got a few kind of thoughts in my head, but let me know in the comments down below what that phrase kind of signifies to you when someone says, "I feel like I'm imprisoned in a steel condom." Okay, all right. I'll leave the clown world there, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. Take care.